Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, Graham Noble, and John Clark. And this is the Conservative Five, an online TV news production of Liberty Nation News. On Sunday, July 21st, President Joe Biden stepped away from his reelection campaign and endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris to take his spot. It took 24 days after a disastrous debate of begging, bickering, and betrayal by his closest allies to remind the man he wasn't really in charge of his own destiny. More than 14 million Democrats cast votes supporting Biden through the primary process. Are they feeling the love for Kamala or perhaps someone else? I'd like to start our discussion today with that fancy tie wearing John Clark, who finally got through to the president. Do we have any idea what happened here?
Well, I think that we could all speculate, and many people are. And what I did find, as far as actual facts that I could find, the Daily Mail recently put a piece out about what prompted him to step down, and a couple of things struck me about it. They cited inside sources that said people finally got through to him when he was shut down with COVID. That his poll numbers were plummeting. Of course, we also know that his donations were plummeting. But what was interesting about the Mail's article is they used terms like it was a last minute, that the White House was completely blindsided by him dropping a bomb. It's like the debate all over again, that people are shocked that this was coming when so many observers saw it was coming. So it seems to be a convergence of factors. And it seems to be that they're trying to repackage this now as a victory.
It's like they're doing the right thing for the right reason.
Well, I don't know about that. Well, we'll be seeing, but
Well, how do they repackage this? How do they repackage an absolute crazy show from day one with this particular president and the media, and I mean, somebody bigger than the rest of us had to get through to him, because the American people have been, begging for a cleanup on aisle one for a while.
But they're trying to repackage it that Kamala Harris is going to win, and I mean, haven't they repackaged everything? From the debate was just a bad night, that repackaging didn't age well. To he was doing so great, he's on top of his game, didn't age well. I'm wondering if we're going to see another similar progression with Kamala Harris. She's going to win. Gee, she had a bad night. Wow, maybe she's not cut out for it. Gee, this person's going to win. It's this packaging that I think is more notable than the actual motivations for President Biden to sit down.
You already see that. I think it was Axios. They scrubbed, or they reported how the right wing, how the conservatives are complaining that Kamala Harris was a border czar and she never did anything with the southern border. And now, but 3 years ago, it was reported that Biden appointed her as the border czar, but now it's some right-wing conspiracy theory that she was the border czar. Make up your mind. Oh, so that's the part of it. And then you're also seeing these journalists who are having cooking lessons with Kamala Harris. It was like the 2020 campaign when they went shoe shopping with Kamala Harris, or clothing shopping, and everyone was drooling over her and not having actual real questions and conversations. This next 3 months is going to be a nauseating affair in this election cycle.
I'm pretty sure Dave's going to go cut down all those trees she planted in Guatemala, but if you get him on a plane anytime soon. Hey, Graham, okay. What are the odds that we see an immediate virtual convention from the Democratic Party? Do you think they'll let it go to the full convention?
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, they kind of foisted even Kamala Harris onto their voters, and I think it's funny that a lot of people on the left are getting very upset because people on the right are saying, look, you guys said you were the defenders of democracy, and Joe Biden got most of the votes and like 99% of the delegates. He was the choice of 14 million, whatever it was, Democrat voters. And now you've basically carried out a coup within your own party, which is exactly what has happened. Anyone who actually thinks that Joe Biden made this decision to step aside, no, he didn't. They threatened him, they coerced him, they bribed him, they did something, they forced him out. I always said that he would not be replaced and that he'd run for re-election. And I based that on the fact that I knew Joe Biden would never kind of accept defeat, accept his limitations and say, okay, I can't do this. I'm stepping away. And I don't believe for 1 minute that he did. They forced him out and replaced him with Kamala Harris, or at least they're trying to. And back to your question, Sarah, well, yeah, will they try this, virtual roll call of delegates before the convention so that they don't have to risk some kind of brokered convention or some kind of, infighting or other people trying to muscle in there? I think they might do that. Clearly the Democrats have shown that they have absolutely no respect for any kind of democratic process. So I think they could well do the virtual thing ahead of the convention and then say, look, okay, it's a done deal. No more arguing about it. Kamala Harris is our candidate.
If I was a voter and this happened this late in the game, I'd already cast my ballot in the primary. I already knew who I wanted to lead the ticket. I would be very angry if that person stepped down and then they picked for me. So, and I don't know if anybody else would think that way. I don't know if Democrats right now are wondering if they're getting sold a bill of goods. I mean, I don't know. And I what will they do with all those printed ballots now? Are they going to have to recycle them or what? Anyway, Andrew, clean up on Pennsylvania Avenue. Let's think about this. Could President Kamala bring something else to the table in terms of an economic policy? I mean, she has a mess to clean up if she is indeed the nominee and then perhaps elected.
Well, not really. And I have a warning to all our viewers who love Graham Noble. I may have to force him into retirement here because I'm going to say something he may not like. But Kamalanomics is not really all that different from Bidenomics. I mean, you look at the 2020 campaign itself. She wanted to ban fracking. She wanted to abolish the filibuster to pass the Green New Deal. She wanted Medicare for all. She wanted universal health care for illegals. She was in lockstep with her boss's legislative trifecta, Inflation Reduction Act, Chip Science Act, and bipartisan infrastructure law. If you look at GovTrack, her record, she voted a lot of times left to Bernie Sanders. So that should tell you everything you wanted to know. I think it was a recent YouGov poll, and it found that many voters don't think she's better than Trump on the inflation front. And considering her policies that she supports and a lot of the Democrats support, and let's face it, a lot of the Republicans advocate, inflation not going to be defeated under Kamalanomics. So overall, voters should not be expecting anything different whatsoever under a potential Harris administration.
Okay, so we have maybe a potential start to 2025 with more of the same. Dave, how about, let's face it, this last 4 years have been a disaster with foreign relations. I don't think I have to bring it all back up, but I'm going to click off the top ones: Afghanistan, Ukraine, Gaza. Would she be a better person in this area than her predecessor?
Sarah, it's doubtful. I mean, the Democrats are going from an indecisive president with the foreign policy instincts of a gnat to Kamala, the candidate who believed she was being insightful, remember, in tutoring Europeans that World War II was really, really bad for them, and that Russia is really big and Ukraine not so big. Look, she stood by in the White House agreeing with the catastrophic decisions Biden made in the retreat from Afghanistan. And, she's offered nothing of substance in moving toward eliminating the Iran-backed terrorist organization Hamas and bringing peace to Gaza. And that's the only way peace is going to come to Gaza, is if Hamas is eliminated, totally destroyed. And the closest that she's come to doing anything productive was the totally irrelevant trip to Central America as the newly appointed and rapidly failed border czar, as we've talked about, planting apple trees while looking for root causes, to keep the metaphor going. And, essentially the invasion of illegals got worse after her trip, topping 11 million, as we know. It is interesting that in a recent Time magazine, there was an attempt to come up with Harris's defense, claiming that the VP wasn't really the border czar after all, but just a fact-finding person, and trying to figure out what was causing the flood of illegal aliens, missing the fact that it was an open border. You know, whether she's a czar or a research assistant, Kamala Harris has failed. And if you're looking for some epiphany about U.S. foreign policy or Kamala Harris becoming an instant savant in international relations, you'll have better luck talking with a coconut, as she's so fond of saying. With regard to foreign relations, she's an empty pantsuit. And remember, during the 2020 primaries, Kamala Harris garnered a whopping, are you ready for this? 844 votes. The people are actually pretty astute.
I will say though,
you know, but just remember one thing though. I mean, it's a good point. You bring that thing up about how many votes, how badly she did in the primaries, but of course we have to remember that Joe Biden, in any of the previous presidential races that he entered, he never got more than about 1% of the Democratic primary vote, and yet in 2020 he got more votes than any other presidential candidate in history.
I would at least say that Kamala Harris looks better in a pantsuit than Hillary Clinton. I will concede that.
I look better in a pantsuit than Hillary Clinton.
The bar is low.
A coconut in the pantsuit. And I think, though, so either Democrat or Republican Party, what we're talking about here is you need both a message and a messenger. And as you've pointed out, both of you and Andrew, she's going to carry forward the same message. I think it's a little harder to change your messaging in mid race, especially this close to the election. But it is not at all a sure thing that she's going to be the candidate. So are we going to look at the next chapter in this debacle as she goes through a similar process? I think they are pushing to make her the candidate and force feed her like goose liver Americans. A lot of Democrats are willing to take anyone carrying that message. So I think it's not over yet, and that's why they're panicking.
The reference or the metaphor has been used to, the Chicago thugs and their approach to politics. And I think that's a very good comparison. And they win, incidentally, John. When the Chicago political machine starts to work, it wins. And so if the Democratic Party wants to put Kamala Harris, as lame as she is, into the position of a primary or the candidate for president, they'll do it.
I think now is the time we better start talking about the RFK factor that everybody seems to be avoiding, but I think he's gathering steam after this last crazy thing in this crazy election. Clark.
Well, it's been said previously here, the Democrats have shown they're not democratic. We could talk about Bernie Sanders and what was done in favor of the Hillary Clinton, queen. They're talking about dragging her out again now. I don't know how that would go. But I think we're seeing a third chapter, aren't we, of an undemocratic Democratic Party, as Dave just said. It is a totalitarian Democratic Party. And if that's what they want to do with Kamala, against the wishes of their own base, I think many of them will flee to Robert Kennedy. But that is what's most striking. Robert Kennedy is out there. He's got percentages. He's got support. He's on the ballots. And crickets. It's as if the mainstream media have forgotten that he existed. Nope, they haven't forgotten. They are gaslighting and sidelining him. I'm wondering. I just have no idea what that looks like as we go forward.
We've all seen what happens when the media chases after people that they don't like or they ignore them. That's part of the reason we had a President Trump in the White House. But I'm thinking, just in the talks that I hear in my little places that I go, it's all about disenfranchisement. They're mad. I mean, people are just mad that they don't, they cast votes, they don't have a say. They, want to get RFK Jr. on the ballot. And they're saying, but that just throws my vote away. Well, I don't think that's true. I mean, in a true democracy, we should all have a vote. every voice should be heard. And that's how we run our elections, even though we are a constitutional republic. Yeah, I know I'm going to get letters. But, you know, when that democracy part is initiated, people are kind of crabby. I think they're looking for a way out. I don't think they like the two candidates. I'm sure that I don't know. I'm getting lost in my own, I don't know, soapbox. So somebody save me.
Well, I find it
save me.
funny. Every single election cycle, you always see the mainstream media talking to voters, and they're always saying, "What? 300 million people in this country. These are the two best candidates we can find." So it seems like every election cycle, this is the same message. Nobody likes either candidate, but they're gonna hold their nose and still vote for that person anyway.
If only we let Canadians run, we could improve our options.
You guys can have Justin Trudeau. Here, take him. You can have it.
Okay,
God, no.
John
You
Clark,
could run.
more than anyone, can you imagine the nicknames that they would give Andrew with the French pronunciation of moron? That's you penned on that.
Yeah, John.
Uh,
Now you gave everyone that secret away. What the heck?
That was a Freudian slip. I never even subconsciously was aware that I thought of you that way as a French person.
It'd just be a rash of memes. All right, guys.
Je suis marron.
The Moran
We're
in
not
chief.
speaking that today. We can speak that later. Well, Mr. Biden's departure has left a wake of voters struggling to figure out what to do with their own Democratic Party. Will they rally around whatever the party tells them to, or go rogue? I don't know. Thanks, panel. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for Free Thinking, Free Speech, LibertyNation.com.